Hi, good morning, everybody. Could you please let me know if you can hear me okay? Oh, that's fantastic. That's wonderful. Thank you, guys. It's so lovely to see you all today. Just a quick message. I mean, I am conscious of the fact that we've got a lot of people that have registered for today, which is absolutely amazing. Hi, good morning, everybody. Could you please let me know if you can hear? So if you can't get into the live stream, please let me know, and we'll make sure that's all answered on. We're live streaming to YouTube, so if you've got any questions, please pop them there. One member of the team will be having a look at that for us, and they will let you know if you have any questions there, and I'll do my best to answer those all today. So welcome to our second hospitality webinar. It's lovely to see so many returning guests as well as so many new ones. We've had an incredible amount of sign-ups for today, so we're delighted that you can join us. The recording and the supplementary materials will be made available shortly after the event. And if you have any questions, we'll be taking some time to answer those. So please use the chat and send message functions to share them. And if you're joining us on YouTube, please leave a comment and we'll get back to you as well. So today we're going to be talking about hospitality in the UAE, how COVID has impacted the tourism industry, how hotels and restaurants have been impacted, and what your business can do not just to survive, but thrive in 2021 and beyond. Then we'll have a look at some creative ideas that have come about due to these restrictions, trends that are impacting restaurants and hotels, and where you should be focusing on marketing. We'll then finish up with some Q&A. So my name is Dawn Gribble, and I'm the founder and CEO of Virtual Solutions Global. I've been working in the hospitality industry for over 20 years, and I've been an event speaker and consultant working in Dubai for the last 5 years. So you may have seen me at the restaurant show or the Middle East Food Forum. VSG Hospitality are an award-winning specialist digital marketing agency headquartered here in the UK in Devon, with offices in Dubai so that we can better serve our GCC clients. We provide solutions for hotels, restaurants, and food and beverage brands. So from consultation and strategy to creative content, building websites and providing social media management and courses and training. So that's a little bit about what we do. So we're going to start off today by examining the effects of COVID-19 on the industry. Now, adapting to the challenges of COVID and the restrictions that it's brought, the way that people interact with each other has turned digital even faster than it was before, particularly now that we've had some restrictions in the region, like on Zoom lifted, for example. So we're seeing a lot more meetings, a lot more shopping online, and a lot more business now conducted over online platforms. So for some companies, this is going to be a steep learning curve, particularly people that perhaps haven't invested in their digital presence. This is particularly true of legacy brands that are sort of big and well established, that may think that their website's working for them. But the fact of the matter is that in this day and age, we've got a much larger adoption of people online of all different ages. So now's a really good time to have a look at your websites and your overall digital presence to make sure that you're going to be able to deliver for the sort of new influx of digital users. So the digital focus has had a strong impact on the e-commerce side of business, as people are now using their digital platforms not only to research and connect, but to make bookings, orders, and payments soon. Now, in terms of how that affects the industry, 80% of people will now download hotel apps that give check-in and check-out options. So very, very important from the safety point of view that we look at how we can make contactless check-in, because obviously people are a lot more concerned about transferal from surfaces. And 73% of people will download room key apps. So if you're looking at a digital upgrade for your venue, this is a good time now to be looking into that. 47% of people would order room service via an app. So again, have a look at how your venue could do this. And I think in general, we're going to see a difference in how people are using room service. I expect room service to really come into its own over the next couple of years. A lot more people are going to be using that, particularly if they're not feeling entirely safe about going to a restaurant. Now, it doesn't matter if you've got the cleanest restaurant in the world, there are going to be some people that will prefer room service. So I would certainly recommend at this time, have a look at your room service menus, what's actually on there, and is that, again, going to appeal to new guests? I think we're moving into an age where the sort of traditional burger and chips, pizza and chips, I can see us moving out of that into more sophisticated dishes and more sort of restaurant quality rather than fast food dishes for the different rooms. And 48% of people would order from the hotel restaurant via an app. So I would say, particularly for this region, do have a look at how you can create a digital experience that augments the physical experience of people coming into your venue. So just like many other economies around the world, the UAE is suffering from the impact of COVID-19. Trade, tourism and transportation are the foundations of the UAE economy. And as the region has had one of the most strictest lockdowns in the world, these restrictions and measures have had, they've had a noticeable impact on tourism, business and the supply chain. The central bank has stated that they've seen a significant decline in economic activity as a result of the COVID-19 lockdown. And that's not really surprising. I mean, those of you that do business in the UK can see that over here we've been similarly affected with, I believe it was the worst sort of performance in 300 years. But that being said, the UAE government has recently introduced several policies to boost the economy and moderate the impact of COVID-19. In fact, they've put in stimulus measures worth around 18% of the GDP of the UAE. So out of the estimated $100 billion worth of dirhams of monetary aid that's been announced so far, the majority of the funds have been earmarked towards small to medium enterprises, as well as consumers. In addition to this, Dubai and Abu Dhabi have also announced individual fiscal packages and stimulus there. So in total, the sort of combined size of all of the encouragement programs exceeds around 120 billion dirhams. So we can see that there's a huge amount of investment, which is fantastic, and a lot of support, which we're seeing in the region. And also Dubai has recently been awarded a safe travel certification from the World Travel and Tourism Council as well. And it also ranks third in COVID, the UAE ranks third in COVID-19 testing per 1 million of the population. So 2021 is expected to be a year of gradual recovery, and that's going to be supported by the diplomatic reconciliation with Qatar, normalizing ties with Israel, the visa reforms, the mass COVID vaccinations, the fantastic support from the governments with domestic tourism strategies, and continued stimulus and the upcoming expo. But what I want to go and do now is speak to my guest today, Karina Gates. Hopefully I've said that right, Karina. Please let me know if I haven't. And we're going to be discussing the changes in attitude. So Karina, thank you very much for joining us today. Could you please just give us a little bit of background about yourself and StarCat, please?
Of course. Well, thank you for having me, Dawn. It's a pleasure to be on your great webinar. So I work with luxury hotels or brands, in particular for clients from the Middle East, mainly in Europe, but obviously I've traveled to the Middle East a lot. And then the other aim of my company is also to bring knowledge to any kind of company that want to go out to the region, to sort of give them a bit of a crash course on, culture, religion, royal families, all of those kind of things. But for me, I have a massive, massive love for the Middle East and the people. And I think it's very much shown also, I think, through this crisis that they've been very much on the forefront of the recovery. They have implemented measures very fast and testing much quicker than a lot of like the European countries. And I think that's why they've also been quite successful in, I would say, over the winter season, to attract more tourists. Yeah.
So, I mean, in your opinion, how, you've mentioned there that the UAE were very quick to react. What are some of the sort of key areas, do you think? What can other countries learn from how the UAE has been so prepared?
I think, the UAE, I think, was one of the, like you said, one of the first countries to bring in testing at the airport, which is, I think that's something, especially in the travel and tourism, that we've been kind of waiting for, also like in Europe, to sort of expand more, just to make the tourist feel safer going there. I mean, I guess they also had a lot more space maybe than some of the European. They have a lot more outdoor space where, like in the restaurants, naturally you can social distance a lot better. But I think we can all learn that that sometimes it's very good to implement measures fast with the testing. I think that's what we've been kind of waiting for in the UK to a certain extent. We probably still wait for some of it now, because I think that enabled the tourism to go back so much quicker, and people, I think, generally felt very safe traveling to the UAE. I mean, I certainly have never heard from anyone that went there, that they felt the measures weren't right. I think the airlines did very well, restricting certain things and making it very safe for people to travel. So I think we can look to that and really, take inspiration.
Absolutely. And I think, when we sort of look at how the UK government has communicated with the UK versus the UAE government, I think the UAE government's done a much better job, personally, in terms of how clear they've been and the guidance. Of my experience of the Middle East as well, because everybody knows that the rules are there for their safety, there's a higher level of compliance in the UAE, I think, than there is in the UK. What are your thoughts on the overall messaging and, how that's actually going to help with recovery?
I mean, I very much agree with you on this. I think the messaging has been very good in the UAE, and people generally, they complied because I think there was a clear strategy and there was a clear message, and people knew, okay, if they had to go to a place, the mask had to be worn, and then people just complied. I think here sometimes, I think with us in the UK, it felt like we had a bit of mixed messaging. First you should do it, then you shouldn't do it, then we went back to it. So I think clarity is very, very important for people. I think the other thing, what I've also learned from a lot of my clients from the UAE, is I think the UAE has also been very fast in securing vaccinations, because from what I understand, I think they have the Chinese, they have the Russian, they have the AstraZeneca, they have the Pfizer one. So they kind of have a good variety. And also, I think the rollout seemed to be much faster over there, because there's certainly a lot of people, I think also like in my age group, or, that here are probably like a lot longer down the line. I think they were able to get it, and I think that also gives them more confidence. And I think we talk about so much how the consumer also need confidence that things are safe again, and I think that really helps.
And how much do you think that, what changes do you expect we're going to see? I mean, obviously, for those of you who aren't aware, in the UK yesterday, we had some good news for once from our government. So just to give you guys a little bit of background on what's happening there, and Karina, I'd like to get your thoughts on this. So yesterday, Boris announced a series of unlocking phases for the UK. But what was interesting is that they're not going for this COVID zero approach that we've looked at before. Basically, the UK government's kind of said, look, coronavirus is never going to go away. Luckily, the vaccines have, I think it's between 86 and 95% efficiency of actually reducing those awful symptoms, and it's had a huge impact on the amount of people going to hospital, in that it's kind of stopped that. So now the UK government is kind of saying, well, look, we've got to live with coronavirus, so you're probably going to end up having a jab every year like we do in the UK with flu jabs, but the hope is that by the 21st of June all restrictions in the UK will be lifted. I do hope, very much hope that we establish an air corridor with the UAE beforehand, because I think that with the sort of strict border controls that we're going to have over here, with the ones that are already in place in Dubai, hopefully we can start seeing a bit more travel backwards and forwards. So, what do you think that we're going to start seeing more business with the UK and the UAE? Because I mean, we're quite lucky here in that we're an island, so we can control our borders. But I know that most Brits are actually planning to go away. What's your sort of opinion on how this is played out?
I mean, I think, it's well, I think it's very interesting, because if you look at certainly outbound from the UK, I think the UAE is now on the red list for now, which is together with all the African countries, which in a way seems a bit it seems completely sort of out of sync with what we saw before, because the UAE, I think, was one of the first ones to get the travel corridor because they did so well. I think maybe it had to do with the fact that a lot of people went there for the winter. And of course, yes, some of the infections rose, but I think they rose by no means in what we saw here in the UK. So I do think we will see a return of that travel corridor, and I certainly hope so, because I also feel like a lot of the countries in the Middle East, they've done very well controlling this, and quite widely then they came onto the travel corridor. I think there is, from what I understand, I think there's another review on the 12th of April on travel, and I think we all hoping that we get a little bit more clarity. But I think I definitely think the UAE will be one of the destinations that will be seen as very safe, certainly outbound from the UK. And I think, I mean, my other hope, probably same as yours, is also that we could go to Arabian Travel Market, which is in May, which kind of
would be lovely.
with that 17th of May date that they've given to look at international travel. But I do think, I mean, we've seen all over the world, I think, cases with the vaccinations, they've been falling, the death rates have been falling. So I don't really see why we shouldn't continue to see that trend. And I definitely think we will see much more travel to the UAE.
Wonderful. And Karina, last question from me. How can businesses get ready for the return of tourism? What advice would you have for them?
I mean, I think it's very much it's interesting. There's been a few interesting trends, I think, that came out of the situation. Certainly, I mean, when I saw the announcement from Spotify that people can now actually, if you work for Spotify, you can work all over the world, and that's like a company policy now. I think that makes new destinations much more attractive. And so you could technically work for Spotify, go and stay in Dubai for 6 months and work from there. So I think
rise of digital nomadism, then I think we're going to see, aren't we?
I think it's going to be fantastic. But I think, again, like you mentioned, I think a lot will be also with technology. And I think Dubai and Abu Dhabi are very much at the forefront of this. I mean, I came across an article yesterday where they said they were testing on Dubai airport that you could travel without a passport. I mean, how amazing. Because wow. how many people, have left their passport at home and then got to the airport and they couldn't go anywhere. So if you can purely go with your face and that as an ID, I mean, that would be great. And it kind of really shows you that I think the UAE invests a lot in technology and new things. And it's exactly like you said, I think keyless entry, a lot of these technologies, I think, will have to be looked at also for travel and tourism. However, I do think, though, for the luxury sector, I think that human element will never go away, because I think people still want to deal with people. So I think it's just about, you have to make the customer feel safe, I mean, all the usual things like sustainability, look at some new trends, maybe give people spaces in the hotel to work there and make it more as an office space and not just class it as a hotel room. I think there's a lot of things. And then, of course, we also look at, I think if we learned one thing during COVID, it's also like the importance of food, and how, you talked about this before in some of your webinars, how important is like brain food, and how can you, give people sustainable and healthy alternatives to, let's say, your fries on the menu.
Exactly. Oh, Karina, thank you so much for joining me this morning. We'll be popping Karina's link to her website later today, so do please go and check her out. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's been,
It's been
pleasure.
lovely to
Thank
speak
you.
to you. Thanks. Okay, and we'll go back to examining some of the trends that we've got in the area. So bear with me a second. Okay, lovely. Can you guys just let me know if you can see that for me again, please? That's fantastic. Thank you so much. Lovely. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about the UAE hotel trends. So almost 99% of Emirati respondents in a survey recently carried out by Hilton said that they felt strongly about missing out on making memories with their families while staying at hotels. And this was a shared consensus where close to 80% of everybody that was surveyed in this study said that their hotel stay is an essential part of the vacationing experience and creating wonderful memories with loved ones. Now, it's expected that by 2022, there will be a preference for longer trips, with businesses and leisure visitors making up 53% of the total outbound market. And with the recovery efforts underway and customer expectations changing due to the safety issues caused by the pandemic, there's a number of growing trends which hospitality businesses should be aware of. So the first one of that is changes in group travel. Now, whether that's international or domestic, there's going to be a slow build towards the previous level of group bookings and travellers. Tim Corden, who's the area senior vice president for the Middle East and Africa region at Radisson, was quoted as saying, whilst the behavioural priorities might have changed, people will want to reunite with their families and friends. And for that to happen, we believe many will consider pursuing international travel once the circumstances allow us to do so. But until restrictions are eased to allow for this, hoteliers should expect less people wanting to travel in larger groups. So this is a really good time to have a look at what small experiences can you do, what sort of luxury experiences can you do for smaller groups. Collier's MENA Hotel Market Survey results also show that the focus for hotels will remain on capitalising on the domestic market, so families and solo travellers in the short term. And obviously hotels and restaurants need to ensure they're compliant with the latest guidelines, and public areas are structured with appropriate distances between the tables, and obviously make sure you've got your sanitation stations and PPE for staff. Now, Nicholas Meyer, who's the global industry leader for tourism and hospitality at PwC, believes that one of the positive effects of an otherwise tragic 2020 situation is that citizens and residents across the world have discovered or rediscovered their own home country as a tourist destination. And this has happened globally, and in the GCC, this development has been particularly strong in the UAE and KSA. Now, according to Donata Travel Survey, 91% of UAE residents want to travel around the country or experience more of the UAE in 2020 and 2021. 2021 and 2022, sorry. So hotels need to ensure that they're positioned to offer safe and compliant experiences that will capitalise on this travel. And additional income outside of room bookings. And both hotels and restaurants should be making their digital presence as a priority. And, really, this is a great way for people to get to know your brand. Have a look at your local area. Who are the stores around where you're located? What are the stories of the businesses around you? It might look the same to you going into your venue every day, but try and look at it through a tourist's eyes. What could you highlight or pick up on, or something slightly different that you could highlight to regional holidayers? Okay, so domestic tourism has increased by 107%, unsurprisingly, as a result of people wanting to spend more time in the region. And in December, the government launched the UAE strategy for domestic tourism and rolled out the first federal tourism campaign, The World's Coolest Winter. Now, that 45-day campaign was overseen by the Minister of Economy and encouraged residents to explore and rediscover the 7 Emirates. The domestic tourism in 2019 added 41.2 billion dirhams to the national economy and accounted for around 23% of total tourism revenue. And this new strategic approach aims to double this figure. Okay, so the popularity of the UAE is by no means limited to its inhabitants. Global travel company Uae conducted a study which found that the UAE is the world's most searched for destination in 2021, and that was true of 11 countries on their search trends. Uae spokesman person stated that each of the 7 Emirates has its own characteristics, but they're all excellent destinations. So this is definitely a result to be proud of, and a clear indication that once normal travel begins to return, travellers will be returning to the Emirates to enjoy the fabulous architecture, cuisine, lifestyle, history, and weather. Another important trend for hotels is wellness tourism, and that's expected to grow by another 75% by 2022. Now, MENA's recent wellness tourism revenue growth rate is 13.3% annually, and that's more than double the global average of 6.5%. So given that it's been that before the pandemic, we can expect more people to travel to the region to recuperate, recover, and basically improve their overall wellness. And I think that's going to be true for individual travellers. And it wouldn't surprise me if some of the larger sort of blue chip companies actually put these sorts of programs on for some of their reps as well to help people get back to where they were being and to sort of recover from burnout and lockdown. Now, of course, wellness travellers are also statistically higher spenders, with 44% spending more on inbound wellness trips than the average traveller to the region. And domestic wellness trips are seeing a 65% premium. So there is a demand in the region for wellness. So again, have a look at what you could offer at your venue or your restaurant to help improve people's overall wellness. Another area to look at is sleep quality. And as part of this focus on wellness, more people are looking for new and innovative ways of upselling their offerings. And one area that we're seeing an increase in is improving sleep quality. Now, this isn't limited to the UAE, and hotels across the globe have been adopting this often overlooked element of wellness routines. There's a resort in Taiwan, for example, that's creating a package called Sleep with Six Senses, in which guests can upgrade their package to include lots of different perks like eye masks, neti pots, bamboo fiber pajamas, sleep mists, as well as a tracker app which guests can download to monitor their rest throughout the night. And then this data is then used by wellness practitioners the next day to suggest different methods of sleeping for further improvements. So again, you could look at wellness packages for your venue and how you could put those together. And again, look at what you can do digitally to educate and inform and delight and serve your customers, and couple that with sort of luxury goods and, incredible experiences. So safety and personal wellness has changed a lot, particularly if we look at the impact of coronavirus. When this first came out, everybody sort of thought it was a respiratory disease, but there's more evidence to suggest that it's actually vascular, which means that it affects your blood, and it affects your organs. And unfortunately, that's why the UK has got a very high death rate, for example, because it's negatively impacted a lot of people with diabetes, with heart conditions, and who are overweight. So I think what we're going to see in general is this big shift more so towards wellness. We worked with a couple of hotel chains in the region over the summer last year to help them put together some sort of personal office and gym packages for their visitors. And again, I think that's something that the uptake from locals has been great on that. So there is this increased demand for on-demand fitness, and this is where the sort of the hotel office room can really come into its own by offering, all the benefits of having like an isolated self-contained office, but having the benefits of decent room service, printing facilities, fast Wi-Fi. And some of the hotels that we've worked with, have even done things like bringing running machines or cycling machines down to the customer's room at lunchtime, which has proved very, very popular. And as an example across the world, the MGM Grand Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas, for example, they've designed 41 stay well rooms, which offer luxurious and health experience for their guests. So these come with air and water purifiers, mood lighting, circadian lighting. So circadian lighting works with your body's natural rhythms, the circadian system. Aromatherapy and more. So I think we can expect these types of suite to become more commonplace and requested across the globe. Okay, so moving on to restaurant trends, sustainability obviously continues to have a huge impact, and obviously is becoming more and more well established in the UAE. And in fact, 43% of UAE residents believe that sustainable food will become more important in 2021, and 29% expect the demand for vegan products to continue to rise. Okay, and a great quote I wanted to share here from Rizgar Sak, who says 2021 will be more about casual and affordable dining. Millennials, Gen Z, and even kids, they're the target audience and the ones to impress in 2021. So that's a nice area to look at. I think also have a look at, what you could do for mum and dad, particularly if, everybody's been in lockup for a while. Maybe give mum a night off with a package, or dad a night off with a package, or perhaps something for the grandparents. So again, look at what you can do in terms of family packages to get to that domestic market. So both domestic and international travellers will be looking at venues and menus that make the best use of their budget and provide them with adequate safety measures. And as we can see from Anis here at Deliveroo, 2021 shows a clear preference from UAE residents for more cleaner, ethical dining lifestyle. And I think one thing that's really important to mention here is that with more and more people concerned about what they're putting into their bodies, it's really, really important to train your front of house staff on the menu items. I've had a few occasions when I've been in Dubai or been in Abu Dhabi where, and I'm sure some of you will have had this situation as well, where you've asked the server for more information on a dish that's on the menu. And unfortunately, what more than happens than not is that you'll tend to have that menu read back to you. So I think it's really, really important to make sure that your waiters are actually educated on those dishes, particularly as we sort of shift more from fast food to nutritional food. And particularly, we need to start really looking at allergies as well, educating your teams on things like, being gluten intolerant, diabetics. It's important to make sure that your staff has this training. Okay, so I've got some ideas that you can implement. So with different stages of recovery and guidance offered around different countries, the level of innovation and inspiration that we've seen around the globe is a true testament to the hospitality industry. Obviously, new trends are born from customer needs and creative thinking, and we've picked out some of the most interesting and adaptable ideas that have made a really positive impact. So the Fairmont in Austin in the United States has been offering out color-coded wristbands and bracelets. And this is really useful for event attendees. It indicates the different levels of comfort and how they feel about being approached by other guests and staff. So you can see the red bands here, for example, are sort of saying to people, no, I'm keeping my distance. They're using yellow to say, fine to talk, but no elbow bumps. And of course, green are fine with elbow bumps. Okay, so the Playa Largo Resort and Spa, which is part of the Marriott Bonvoy, they've also been using this color-coded system at weddings, with some couples choosing to monogram their names and wedding dates onto the bracelets as an additional souvenir that their guests can take home with them. And they've also been offering the ability to coordinate with different color levels to match the design and the scheme of the weddings. So this is a great option for people who just making your guests feel more safe and secure on your venue. Okay, we've seen the rise of vertical concerts in the States. So the Bahia Mar Fort Lauderdale Beach, Doubletree by Hilton in Florida, they offered their guests a vertical concert. So the band performed in an open space, and guests were able to watch and listen from the balconies of the hotel rooms, so that way they could still remain socially distanced, but still enjoy the atmosphere and the excitement of being part of the audience. And now, apologies for the picture. I would have liked to have got a better one for you, but this is an idea that I'm encouraging everybody to pick up and use. So in the Hyatt Regency in Green Bay, they had this great idea for sort of making the staff become more approachable despite the fact that they're wearing masks. And what they've done here is they've got a picture of that staff member smiling on a badge, and they've got that on the lapel. And it's really clever because masks do prevent that sort of personal interaction, whereas having the smiling face of that attendee has been great. So again, it's just another little step, something that's going to be quite cheap to do, but will be very effective. So other ways in which you could use your hotel would be as a ghost kitchen. So a ghost kitchen allows for restaurants who don't have a physical venue to actually do delivery only. So if your hotel restaurant is currently closed or only operating on limited hours, then offering up the premises or your services as a ghost kitchen could be a new revenue stream for you. And in fact, an Allied Market research report shows that the global virtual ghost kitchen market was valued at $43 billion in 2019. And it's estimated to reach $71 billion by 2027. I think, to be honest, coronavirus is really going to accelerate that. And I think we will be reaching that sort of global figure a lot quicker. So again, have a look at how you could use that kitchen, perhaps by offering a delivery only service, or by allowing sort of smaller homegrown brands to use your facilities. Now, upselling experiences is very important as well. So a lot of people now, particularly across the globe and in Western countries, they've put all of their money into their next trip. We're going to be seeing a lot more expenditure on next trips because for many people, this is a chance to really let their hair down, to escape it all. And we're seeing now that people are really searching for experiences. So when you're planning out your strategies, keep an eye on how you can get the maximum amount of revenue from your customers. Think laterally, what can you do or offer that gives your customers extra value and is worth additional expenditure for them? So think about adding luxury to necessities, such as bringing in luxury hand sanitizers that perhaps are also moisturizers. Additional upgrades such as softer pillows, or maybe UV lights for the room, for people that sort of want to make sure they're completely germ-free. Have a look at creating package deals that utilize the goods and services that you're already offering, so that way your customer's going to gain extra value, but you're not going to generate extra expense. I would say that it's really important that you don't immediately jump to discounts. I know that discounts are a big part of UAE culture, but if you're looking at the tourists coming in from the Western worlds, they're not really going to be thinking about that. They're just going to be thinking, you know what, I just want to have an amazing stay in an amazing place with amazing people. So don't discount. It's one of the big bugbears of mine, because I always feel like if you discount, you're going to devalue your brand. So instead, look at value packaging as well. And look at how you can work with local partners to create really incredible experiences. So, use your social media channels as a way to gauge interest, post polls and questions, see what kind of feedback you get. Also, have a good look at the reporting that you're getting from your social media, what posts and what topics are most important. There's a wealth of information to be gained from digital that can then be converted into new offers that increase your RevPAR. So where to focus your marketing activities? So, obviously this is a lot to take in, and you might be unsure about what you need to be doing now and next. So really at this stage, I would definitely recommend looking at your website, particularly because a lot of people now, because they're at home, they've got time to be on the internet. They're not necessarily going to go straight to booking.com or straight to Deliveroo or Zomato or Talabat. People are starting to use the net more and more and more. And the first place they're going to find is your website. Now, if your website isn't up to date, if it's outdated, if it's poorly designed, then that's going to leave a negative impression for people. So I'd say use this time before the sort of tourism travel, before these tourism corridors open again, to do a digital audit. What's your branding like? What's your SEO? What's your long-term strategy? And then look at how you can differentiate yourselves to attract these new buyers. Is your website and collateral, does it mention safety, security? Does it offer value? So these are all things that it's very, very important to have a look at, because and your social channels too, because more and more people are using social media channels as customer service channels these days. So again, if you're not on top of those channels, you are going to lose out if you're not responding quickly, etc. And I also think for the region, it's important to, assess your social with a fresh set of eyes. A lot of people that are going to be coming to the region are going to be wanting to find food, yet a lot of the restaurants in Dubai still insist on marketing themselves as nightlife destinations. And there's been times where I've been looking through social channels for restaurants, and it's very difficult to find the food or learn more about the ingredients. So with these, the sort of more empowered consumer, if you like, there's people are looking for a lot more information. And because price isn't such a big factor anymore, because people are looking to spend more on experiences, it's definitely the right time to be doing a bit of an audit. Now, if you do need help with any of that, our services are designed to meet your needs. We do everything from creating a brand story, which might be positioning, market research, to creating strategies for different channels, and obviously offering solutions as well. Now, for some clients, that might be full outsourced marketing. For others, they might be looking for an agency to offer interim support until your in-house team is fully back and you're together. So if you do have any of these things that you need help in any of these regions, please do let me know. Our next webinar is going to be on the 17th of March, and we're going to be looking at what's driving wedding trends. So I'll pop a link to that into our description. And if you have any further questions or want to book a consultation, then you can give us a call for our Dubai office on this number, or please visit us on social media or on our website. Lovely. So I'd like to throw this over to some Q&A. So I'll have a look at some of your questions. Okay, so JM Berger asks, do you think digitalization, app to book sunbed, order F&B, click to call the spa could match with luxury hospitality resorts and guest experiences? Absolutely. I think the more that you can offer digital, it's got a couple of benefits for you, the more that you can get online. So one, people, as I say, people want convenience. So from the customer point of view, the more that they can do on their phone, the better it's going to be for the actual customer, particularly if you're ordering food or drink service from your sunbed, wanting to book spa facilities, or perhaps ordering, sort of nutritious meals or what have you again. So I think that really that should be a given in all luxury resorts now. That's certainly something to look at. Now, the other benefit of that means that the more interactions that your customers are making on digital means that you've got more data to work with. So you can see if, if for example, you're getting people booking your sunbeds and you're finding that you've got a waiting list, well, then it might be a time to order another sunbed. So, all of this data can continually be used to improve what you're doing. Okay, so Sushanta has said, in your opinion, what's the percentage of domestic bookings that will happen on mobile apps versus desktop progressively? Now, that's really going to vary depending on which country and which demographic you're looking at. If you're looking at the domestic staycation market for the UAE, then most of that will happen through mobile apps or the mobile website, because I believe, and I will find the statistic for you later, is that 98% of adults in the UAE have smartphones, and they will use this to book. In terms of desktop, yes, some people will still use desktop to book, particularly office workers, corporate travel buyers, etc. But generally for tourists, go mobile first. Make sure that your site is mobile first. Even Google itself, for example, they rank your websites based on the mobile experience before the desktop experience. So I think that realistically, I would guess that sort of 90% of domestic bookings will probably be on mobile. Tourists coming into the area would be looking at 75–80%. Simon Thomas says, do you think that by the time we're able to trade normally, many of the protocols will be outdated? That's a great question, Simon. I think, that's one that we've had problems with, not just, as Karina and I mentioned earlier, communications, I think, in some regions of the world haven't been brilliant. But I think if we look at what are the long-term protocols going to be, I think that social distancing is going to be here for a while. So, again, make sure that you've got plenty of space between your different regions. Make sure you've got ventilation. If you've got an outdoor area for dining, outdoor, I mean, obviously that's great in Dubai up until what sort of April, May, isn't it really? So that always works well. But, people are going to be looking for cleanliness, contactless, and sustainability. So I think those protocols, contactless and cleanliness, they're the protocols to focus on and experience. Anonymous asks, how likely are the hotels in Dubai to accept new interns in around August? I wish I could answer that one for you, but I really can't at this moment in time. But I would say that, hospitality, it's one of these industries that can't really be taught. You have to be born with knowing what hospitality is. And I think that if you love to serve people, you love to make them happy, and you love to create those experiences, make sure that's on your resume. And you know what? Do some video resumes if you're looking for jobs in hotels, because this is a people industry. So what I would recommend is, you've got a smartphone. How about when you apply for these jobs, record a little message, show people what's special about you. Let me have a look. Okay, so Melville asks, as per the data from your end stating that guests will move to using apps to check in, out and order meals, how would this affect hiring and staffing in the industry? I mean, apps and tech can only do so much. You are always going to need that human element. And there are going to be particular groups of customers that don't want to use the technology at all. So I think it's really important that you've still got that personal service, but married with the data as well. And more so, as Karina was saying earlier, in luxury, that sort of people element still has to be maintained. So I think we probably will see more digital hiring and staffing in the industry. I think that now Zoom's kind of been, it's not restricted anymore in the region. I think we'll see a lot more of that. And I think realistically, if you want to, sorry, I do apologize, my screen's just changed. So yeah, again, look to digital, look to different channels there. So Lewis asks, will you reassure that the expo will be confirmed by the end of this year? Lewis, unfortunately, I can't make any promises. I do think it's very likely to go ahead because of the efficacy of the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines. I think that given the numbers we're seeing, particularly in the Western world, I think we're certainly going to see more travellers. So fingers crossed that's still going to go ahead because the vaccines are making an impact. What we do need to keep an eye on will be those variants to see if the variants are not being affected by the vaccines. So again, I can't confirm anything, but I do think it's more likely to go ahead because of the success that we've seen. Shabana asks, following from the app questions, would you say that this is the time for hotels to look at their tech stack and adaptable PMS? Absolutely. Have a look at what your tech stack's doing for you. Look at the most important metrics. So the number one important metric, brand awareness. There are so many brands on digital, and I was talking to a very nice chap from Google a couple of years ago, and he told me that beforehand we used to say to people it takes 5 to 10 touch points for a company to remember your brand, but with the amount of stuff that's online now, it's actually taking between 50 and 70 touch points before people make a decision to book directly. So yes, do have a look at that tech stack. Have a look at, what's your brand awareness? What's the number of inquiries you're getting? What's the number of downloads for your brochures, newsletter signups, and obviously bookings? So that's the key areas that I would focus on. And if your tech stack isn't actually covering these important metrics, do you still need it? Alan asks, do you think that sustainability is the key for a progressive UAE in the hospitality industry? Absolutely. I could not stress this enough. Sustainability in the industry is an absolute must. And Hilton recently released a survey. I'll pop the link to the survey onto the event page in a little while. But they found that 80% of travellers are expecting to be sustainable when they come on holiday now. So, have a look at your venue. Have you got recycle options? Is your food composted? There's some fantastic leaders in the industry in the region. So I think what we'll look at doing perhaps is maybe let's do a follow-up and I'll ask some sustainability leaders from the region to get inside on here. I'm just going to have a look through some other questions. So there's a lot coming through, so this is wonderful. Okay, I think we've actually got all of those. So I think that's everything from me. So, but anyway, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you all today. If you do have any more questions, please feel free to pop them onto the LinkedIn page, and I'll be sure to answer those personally. So thank you so much again for everybody that's visited today. We'll be sending out, oh, hang on, it looks like we've had a couple of other questions through. Bear with me just a sec. I missed this from Zishan. So Zishan asks, in your opinion, do you think that the Europe market will bring more business this summer? I think, again, we've got to look at that on a country by country basis because there's different vaccines and availability in the different areas. But I think certainly from a UK point of view, I think that you can expect to see many, many more UK tourists by the end of this year once we're out of lockdown. Oh, and thank you very much for the very, very kind messages, guys. It's been so lovely to speak to you today. So what I'm going to do is later on today, I'm going to make sure that we've got the full presentation with all the bits that I've spoken. So you've got the written down bits and all the references as well. So yeah, thank you very much for coming. I'm Dawn, and this has been VSG in the UAE. So take care, and we'll see you next time.